Bearcat Bounce Podcast, back at it again. It's a week coming off of vacation for Chad, for Aaron, Ryan going to see his Yankees get beat up by the Reds.
Come on.
It's a week where Brent is out of town this magnificent Monday. It's a week where the Bearcats are a week closer to the start of summer camp. It's a week where we find out what the new uniforms look like on Wednesday. It's a week where pretty much everything in the Linder Center and on the campus of the University of Cincinnati is shut down for the 4th of July. It's a week where it's only the three of us. So let's get to it. Let's get to my guys, the fellas, the boys. Aaron, Ryan, how are we?
I feel like Brent's still here.
Magnificent. Absolutely magnificent. A week where we celebrate freedom because America.
Hell yeah. Remember when that's what I wanted them to name the American Conference? That's what I wanted the slogan to be. America. Hell yeah.
They missed out on that.
That would have been money. Like how that conference would have been the greatest conference in the history of conferences if their slogan was just America. Hell yeah. Thank you, D. I appreciate that. And the funny thing is, because Brent told me he was going to be gone last week while I was on vacation, I completely forgot Brent was going to be gone until we were sitting backstage waiting for Brent to show up. And then I was like, oh, wait, Brent's gone this week. And he's the one that usually plans the show. So you talk about seat of our pants. This one's going to be flying by the seat of our pants. We might have to do some user submissions for mailbag questions a little later in the show, Aaron. Because,
okay.
Yeah.
We're rough.
Aaron, how are we?
Good. Got back from vacation Saturday night. Went out to Outer Banks. It was a great time. We had giant house a block from the beach, so plenty of beach days, plenty of pool days. Every family that was there had a night where they made food, so you didn't have the fatigue of having to cook for your own family all week. That worked out real well, and then we just had leftovers the next day in some iteration of whatever the night was before. It worked out real well. But a lot of family time, a lot of sunshine. We had beautiful weather, better than here.
Florida was awesome last week.
Yeah.
Florida was perfect last week. The only problem I had on our vacation, Aaron, our grill maxed out at 250 degrees.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Ribs only.
Yeah. So we had to put the stuff out a little bit earlier than we were anticipating for the cookout day. And then just we're going to have to do everything else inside, or we're going to have to eat out for the rest of this trip. Luckily, there was a Publix like 1 minute from our spot. So a lot of pub subs and a lot of pre-prepared food. But other than that, Florida was wonderful last week. And then I look back, Aaron, at least in Destin, I don't know where you were at. But 14 days of rain, like 65% or higher, like the 14 days after we left. We nailed that. Perfect. We didn't see a drop of rain.
We didn't either. It rained pretty much the whole week prior to us getting there, and started raining on the drive home. Not there, but like in Virginia on the drive home. So they were going to get it, but we lucked out. So,
Ryan, how are we?
I'm good, man. I had a good weekend. Enjoyed some of the sun, but the heat was just unbelievable this past week. And like you mentioned, I watched my Yanks kind of get their ass handed to them by the Reds. But I went Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, so I did the Triple Crown. But I mean, by fourth inning Wednesday, I was just exhausted because it was. I can't remember like the past 8 years that I've lived here it ever being that hot and humid, and we were in the shade at all times, and it was just miserable. But yeah, that was fun. I mean, the Reds are playing well, so
not tonight.
No, not tonight. Bad first inning. I was definitely getting my fair share of heckling, probably the worst heckling I've ever got in my life. Probably it was the only one that probably topped it was when we were at UCF on College game day, standing in the tunnel and during warm-ups. That was probably the worst heckling. And then that Tuesday night, it was 3-2-1 night at the Red Stadium. So $2 beers, a young crowd, feisty, a little bit under the influence of ice-cold beer. So the Yankee fans weren't received well. But, yeah, it was a good weekend, but missed you guys on Monday. So excited to be back here with y'all.
If you've got a bum wheel or, your pride's hurt a little bit and you need to get your car looked at, as a result, you can take it to Danco Transmission and Auto Care, and they'll get you taken care of. Go see our guy, Danco Joe. Check out www.dancotransmission.com and mention the BBP. Mention Ryan Royer. Mention Aaron Smith. Mention Nico Palizzetti on your next visit and get 10% off. That's all I got. That's all I got.
We need.
So this is something I was going to kind of save for Wednesday, the show that I prepare, and then Brent prepares this show. But then I remembered 4 minutes before we started that Brent wasn't going to be here this week. So I'm just going to take this little idea and move it here to the front of the BBP, and then I'll have to come up with a new idea on Wednesday. But, that's life in showbiz sometimes. It's life in showbiz sometimes. That's why you got to always think ahead. You got to keep the brain working. You
must have been doing this for a long time.
I have been doing this for way too long. Way too long. I started doing this stuff in the 90s. I was podcasting in like 2003.
Ahead of the curve.
Just trying to find work. Find somebody that'll pay me for something. The only thing people will pay me for is to talk.
Not a bad way to do it.
You got a face for radio.
I got a face for radio. I mean, I did some TV, but that dried up pretty quick. They were like, "Yeah, you're better on the vocal airwaves." We are at June 30th. Tomorrow starts the fiscal new year for the University of Cincinnati and kind of turns the page from the 2024-2025 athletic calendar to the 2025-2026 athletic calendar. So I thought it would be a good idea to maybe go through the football and basketball and any other programs that were open to discuss. Baseball with Jordan Bischel, maybe basketball with Katrina Merriweather, and I know volleyball's looking at a new coach. But we'll start with the big ones in football and basketball, and where things maybe went wrong in 2024-25, what we'd improve, and then what we need to see in 2025-26, because let's face it, this is a really, really big year for John Cunningham and his athletic department. The transition to the Big 12 has been difficult. I think most of us knew that it would be difficult. I think some underestimated. I think some just assume things are always going to be great. And when they're not great, then we're going to raise hell and throw a fit and everybody needs to be fired. We try not to do that here. But the reality is they have not had the type of success that is expected from the athletic department at the University of Cincinnati, especially football and basketball, the two major sports, the two revenue drivers. So let's take a look back on things from 2024, 2025, and kind of extrapolate that on what needs to be done for this athletic department to show positive momentum. Because I think it kind of stalled out. I mean, we had this conversation, Aaron, at the new year. It was like, hey, 2024 kind of sucked. And 2025 didn't get a whole lot better except for Jordan Bishel and baseball getting on a run into the baseball NCAA tournament. So football started great, really. 5-2. I think, we all were pretty on top of that they were going to need to start fast. They were going to need to get out to a hot start with the way the schedule lined up, because the back end of the schedule was going to be much more difficult than the front. But then they lose 5 straight. And Ryan, it's unfortunate because it felt like there was some genuine momentum building in the football program going into that final month and a half of the season. And unfortunately, the offense kind of went cold as the weather went cold, and left everybody with more questions than they had going in.
Yeah, we've talked about it countless times, the lack of skill on offense, especially the receiver position, because we saw what Sorsby could do. But if you got guys that can't get open and your best players are tight end, I mean, it's pretty easy to do one guy underneath, one guy over top on Joe Royer, and then kind of just stay in front of the receivers that we had running routes, because they weren't really finding a lot of separation. And no matter how good Sorsby's arm might be, and he can't like force guys open. He's not like Aaron Rodgers, who can just throw the ball in between windows and just make miraculous plays. And then you saw us try to lean more on the run game, lean more on Sorsby's run game, try to get an extra blocker in there, and that just becomes too predictable. And I mean, the teams were able to. We had a pretty consistent scouting report every week. We weren't really able to throw any defenses off, so it was pretty simple to cover us up and stall the offense. But the bright side is we brought back all of our best players. We brought in a lot of skill on the offense and in the defensive secondary. And you're also adding another year of comfortability, same quarterback. He's got a go-to guy with Royer coming back, who'll be one of the best tight ends in the country. A lot of skill, a lot of guys that have produced at the mid-major level or the lower major level. But, hearing Nico talk about them, hearing Sat talk about them, their abilities athletically, how they've really hit the ground running in this offseason. They're only going to get better as we get closer to camp and through camp. So I think it's trending in the right direction. You have guys that are back that are best players, and you got guys that most likely are going to be better than what we had last year. Throwing that all together with everyone under the same system again. Satterfield's going to be calling the plays on offense. Sorsby's going to be delivering them. You got Vite, another year of comfortability under his belt at the DC, which is huge, because that's a big jump to go from a position coach all the way to a DC at Cincinnati. But we like his scheme. We think it adds a lot of wrinkles, a lot of ways to confuse the offense, a lot of exotic blitz possibilities that, by talking to him on the air, off the air, he's been able to kind of he always resonates. This is a new year, a new year to learn, and guys are really picking up on stuff. And we feel like we can really expand our call sheet and use these guys that we brought in and really kind of take the next step on defense. And defense it wasn't bad for us last year. It kept us in games for the most part all year long. So I'm looking for defense to take a step to start impacting games. I'm looking for offense to kind of step back up and be able to go out and win games, since defense should be keeping us in it. But, this is, we always talk about, everyone's like, fire Satterfield. It's like, you got to make a bowl game this year, but I don't even think they're not, even if we shit the bed this year, we go back and forth. Is it even possible to buy him out and get rid of him or something like that? But we know it's right in front of us. We should have won 6 games last year. We definitely should and need to win 6 games. And if we don't, it's a failure. So I don't know. At football, I think it's trending in the direction to take a step forward. 8 wins would be huge. I think that would be like the true sign of, is this going to work? If Satterfield can win 8 games this year, then I don't think we should be looking back down the barrel of, we got to get rid of Satterfield and start over. But it is. I feel like for the growth of this program and the steps that it needs to be able to take, 7-8 win season this year is absolutely critical. Even just making a bowl game at 6, I think, is still taking a step backwards. But I'm feeling comfortable that they're moving towards that 7 to 8 win window. Just got to go execute this year in a tough conference, those coin flip games. So we'll see. A lot riding on it.
Kind of piggybacking off of that. I don't know. I think that this team has a real nice mix of returning players, and I think they improved in a lot of places where they had departures. Joe Cotton and Taryn Tayo, I think, are going to be excellent on the line. I think Tully Walker is going to be a really nice piece in that running back room. I think the wide receiver room improved at legitimately every spot. I don't know. We have. There's only one guy who's done it against Power 4, but from what I've read, what I've seen, I feel like they've improved across the board in that room. That said, defensively, yeah, I mean, Tyson Veit really, towards the end of the season, it really felt like things were starting to click for this team, and you bring back a number of guys who are familiar with his scheme, so they'll be in their second year, along with Tyson Veit in his second year. You bring back, or you bring in guys like Christian Harrison, guys like the safety Williams, Xavier Williams. You move some pieces around, like a Logan Wilson moving over to corner. I think you just have some really nice pieces and some really nice places up and down this defense right now. And you aren't having to worry about Dante Corleone going through blood clots, which let's hope that's never a thing for that young man again. But you also, I think the one thing that Ryan didn't even hit on is the fact that you have a whole new special teams coordinator in here now. And that in and of itself should be monumentous for this team. You also have a new punter. You have a new kicker. I'm sure you'll have new gunners, new returners. So I think that you pretty much have wiped the slate clean on what special teams was last season. And there's so much hidden yardage there that this team, on those coin flip games that Ryan was talking about, now you have hopefully a better position on the field in those coin flip games simply because of what you've done on special teams. So I don't know. I'm excited. I don't think 8 is crazy. I think 8 regular season wins, I don't think is crazy. So then you'll see what you can do with a bowl game off of that. But I think anything less than, for me, anything less than 7, I'll be truly disappointed.
Yeah.
I think, to go back to Veit real quick, I do think something that needs to be talked about is he came in after the portal last year, after the winter portal. So that, and I think it was actually after the spring portal as well, if I remember correctly. He was very, very late in the process. So he didn't really have a say in any of the pieces he had on that defense last year. So I think you give him a year to learn the personnel, and then you give him an off season to bring in guys that they think will be impact guys defensively. I think that is a massive, a massive plus for him going into year 2. Not just that he'll be in his second year in the program, but also in his first year, really being able to have any hand in what the personnel looks like. And that's tough on a defensive coordinator if you're coming in and you don't really get, any say, any hand in what your defense is going to look like, Ryan.
Yeah, that's a great point, because we always knew that we had a top end like front office. They were able to go get guys. They always
Yeah.
seem to go get. They always get a good plethora of guys with good talent, spread out across the board from different conferences and different levels of FBS. But it's kind of hard when you're not really working in line, like you said. If you have Vite, who runs a different defense and has a different idea of the types of players he wants to play specific positions, it doesn't really matter how good of a front office you have until that moment where they mesh. And like you're saying, this year, now they're able to mesh together and they're in complete unison on the type of player they want, the type of position they need filled with that player. So that's a great point. And I think that's only going to help the situation. And kind of piggyback, just overall, like highlighting the concept of bringing in guys from the portal. And there's people always like, oh, why aren't we going out and getting guys from the SEC? Why aren't we going and getting guys from the Big Ten and these power conferences? And sometimes we get these guys that are from lower level conferences. It's because, like, just think about when I played, when we were in the American, we were getting 3-star players. And what we did is we had a system, a scheme on offense and defense that we relied on and that worked and that everyone was in sync with. And we had the development side of things with Brady so that we could foster the culture and everything could come in and work in sync. So by us, like, you got to have the perspective on going out, and we don't need to go get guys from Alabama and Ohio State. For example, we go get the guy from Lindenwood at receiver, and all we're hearing about is this dude's a freak. He's a freak in the weight room. We see his athleticism at practice. We hear about the playmaking ability that he has. And taking a guy like that with those abilities, even though it was at Lindenwood, bringing them into a culture and a program that Nico and Satterfield have been working directly in line with, like Nico's talked about several weeks on this podcast, and integrating them into the team. And now you're also integrating them into offense or defense that's now even more established with Vite and with Satterfield with another year under their belt. So think about a guy like Alec Pierce. You go see a kid, he just started playing football his sophomore year of high school. He was a volleyball player. Now look at him. He was developed under a good system. He was developed offensively and developed under a good system in the weight room. And he's blossomed into one of the up-and-coming receivers in the NFL. And not saying that, like, all of our portal guys are just going to turn into NFL players, but I think we've set ourselves up with this year 3 where it's trending towards that direction. We got coaching staff and training staff aligned. We've got coaching staff with better experience. So these guys, they have the ability, they have the measurables, being able to put them into an offense with a good quarterback, put them into a defense with good linebackers in a mainstay like Corleone. These things are only going to get better. And it's all going to come down to, can this team execute in the make or break moments? And I think that we've been trending in the direction that we're ready to break down that door. We have the guys that can make plays. Now they just need to go make them. And I think they're going to be put in a better position this year with our coaches having better experience with them.
And that's not to say, like, I know people look and they want to, focus on, like you said, getting guys from a lower level and moving them up. But Patrick Gerd comes from Ohio State. He's going to have a big role on this team. Christian Harrison comes from Tennessee. He's going to have a big role on this team. Tyree Walker comes from Wisconsin. He's going to have a big role on this team. You get CJ McCray from Virginia Tech. I don't know exactly what kind of impact he's going to have right away, but that's another one. You get Cyrus Allen from Texas A&M. Like, it's not strictly a situation where they're, only looking at guys jumping up a level, but you have to find that mix. Like, you have to find that balance of Darren loves optimistic Royer.
Name.
You got to find that balance of going and finding some guys that you can mix in from other Power 5 programs, and then looking at some guys that are ready to step up a level. I think there is a way to do both successfully. You're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I agree. And it's all good. And what I want to see from this team week one is kind of like how we were that week one at UCLA.
Yeah.
Because I know we're Big 12 now. So we're power four. Whereas when I was on the team, we were American going into the Rose Bowl, playing a Pac-12 team. But I think we're in the same shoes here where I think we have positive momentum in this program, even though we're coming off a 3-9 and a 5-7. We need to have the mindset of we got shit to prove, and we have good players, we have a good system, and it's time to go show the world on national television Thursday night, 8:00 at Arrowhead against a proven program in Nebraska that's looking to prove stuff too this year. We need to kind of start this year off with this underdog mentality of, we got good guys, we got a good system, we got to go take it to Nebraska week one. We got to put our playmakers out there. We got to rely on them. We got to rely on Sorsby. And we got to establish this new Cincinnati week one immediately from the jump. I think that's a must-win game. If we want to see an 8-win season. I don't like starting out this year 0-1. I don't want to, it's a one-possession game versus Nebraska. We showed growth. That's a must-win game for this program to be able to take that step and elevate ourselves out of this hole. And I want this team to kind of attack that from the, we've been down the past 2 years and no one's really thinking about us to be good. We're always looked at as the bottom end of the conference every preseason. We got to go hit the ground running and really show out versus Nebraska and to kind of get this train moving down the right direction, because the goal is to compete for that Big 12 championship every year. That means you're playing for a playoff spot every year now. And I'm not saying that's going to happen this year if we beat Nebraska, but if we don't beat Nebraska, I can't see this program ever reaching that point without kind of a statement win to start off this critical year 3.
Well, you mentioned Dante Corleone, but what you haven't mentioned is the fact that you're playing with so much more depth all across that defensive line this season. They were playing with a 3rd string, 4th string guys on that defensive line last season. Not just at that defensive tackle spot, because Dante's snaps were at least initially limited for several weeks. So, I mean, I don't know. I think that's going to make a giant difference on this defense, having the depth that you're starting the season off with all across that defensive line, barring injury in summer camp, fall camp, I guess. I don't know what we're calling it at that point, but camp.
It's not fall camp. It happens in August.
I understand.
We've had this talk before. I'm not I'm just saying. I refuse to call it fall camp when it happens in the middle of the summer.
In any case, I think that's a giant just plus for this defense going into the season, is just having 1s and 2s readily available.
Knock on wood. It's early. Yeah. The other thing, and I'm interested in your take on this, Royer. It appeared the culture of the locker room was good last year, but when they got tested, they couldn't get over that hump. It again appears they kept the guys, by and large, most of the guys that they wanted to keep. They return a lot of their core. How much does culture get you? Or does culture is great in the offseason, but until you're winning, like it's not a major thing. It's not a major needle mover.
I think it's huge. I think it's I think it's what makes the jump from good to great, and it would make the jump from bad to good for us. I think the problem with I think one of the biggest problems we had last year is what we talked on at the start of this segment was the offense kind of hitting that wall. And it almost felt like no matter how good our defense was playing, keeping us in games. It always felt like our offense and our special teams was kicking us in the ass. Then our offense wasn't able to do anything. And I think it was mainly because of the players and the talent level at our skill positions on offense. I think from talking to Nico, just with my 5 years of experience at UC under Brady, I think that he's done everything that I could ever imagine a strength coach doing, and also adding new wrinkles that I find are unique throughout college football. Like we never had that going for us with the direct in line with the coaching staff, and like having like direct correlation to football in every workout, direct correlation with numbers and metrics to their position, and that's being under review by their position coaches weekly. So I think that's only going to take the culture and move the needle to where it was last year. So I think that there is going to be a jump in the way of, kind of those make or break plays, or those drives where the defense kind of gets caved in the red zone. Are they able to hold them out, not make stupid decisions, no stupid penalties, to be able to put a 3 on the board instead of a 6? But all in all, I think culture means absolutely everything. And I think what we have going for us right now in the direction that we've been going this offseason, I think you're going to see at least 2 games go our way in the win column, whereas last year I think they would have ended up being a loss, like that Pitt game, for example, just kind of like that. Those stupid critical decisions. I really think that you're going to wipe 2 of those off the board this year, but well, we can only hope. So we definitely need it to happen.
MDOT Satterfield calls the plays. So firing the offensive coordinator isn't going to change anything in terms of the offense. It gets Scott Satterfield's offense. So, there's a lot that a coordinator does, but when it comes to game day, the head coach is the guy calling the plays. Firing again, that just gets into the culture of somebody's got to be fired. It doesn't matter who. The offense struggled over the last 5 weeks. Fire somebody to make me, the fan, feel better. Scott Satterfield wasn't getting fired. So firing the offensive coordinator might have made you feel better, but I don't think it changes anything in terms of how the offense rolls out in 2025.
It's the only thing you could say about that in defense of the firing of, if you were to try and make an argument for firing Brad Glenn, is he was also the receivers coach.
Sure. But that's firing the receivers coach. That's not firing.
Correct.
Like, as an offensive coordinator, if you want your pound of flesh from the offensive coordinator, the guy didn't call the plays.
Just trying to.
Yeah. No,
playing devil's advocate, I guess.
I get what you're saying on that front, and this is a big year for Brad Glenn. Like, the wide receiver room has got to develop. You've got a pretty good quarterback in Brendan Sorsby that I think can develop into a very good quarterback. I mean, even with kind of a really shaky second half, his numbers weren't bad. He's one of the better yardage guys in the Big 12. 18 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. A couple of those interceptions were on him, as we saw like in the West Virginia game. Stuff where that wasn't scheme, that was Sorsby forcing things, feeling pressure, forcing things, and bad things happening as a result. But I do think this is a big year for the passing game. We've seen they can run the ball. But guess what?
Too.
Yeah, but guess what? At this level, guys, if you can't throw it, teams are going to let you run it.
Yeah,
like they're just going to say you can't beat us through the air. Like if you get 200 yards rushing, but you only get 130 yards passing, defenses are going to be okay with that, Ryan.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because hey, run the ball 3 times. We'll see if we can hold you to 2 or 3 yards a run, and then you could try to go for it on 4th 2 times of having the ball, and odds are is something you're either going to have a penalty, or you're going to have a missed assignment, and this run schedule is you're going to get right off schedule with the run. And because it's the same thing, it's all about explosive plays. Explosive plays directly translate to points, directly translate to wins. So you need to be able to have explosive plays on offense, and you need to be able to limit explosive plays on defense. That's the recipe for winning football games in the Power 4 level right now. And like Aaron said, and a big difference in a way to kind of, get the edge there and even things out or get a jump is with special teams, field position. So you get the ball on the 40 or 50-yard line, an explosive play, that's 18 on a run and 25 through the air or something, somewhere right around there is like you're already in field goal range. So that's how it works. And so we need to be able to get open on offense, which we weren't able to do last year. And getting open at receiver, that then is going to mean that's going to give Joe Royer a one-on-one. That's going to give a seam up the middle for him to be able to find the hole in between the zone, because they have to cover more on the outside because the receivers are able to break through zones or be able to get open on man on those intermediate routes, that 12 to 17-yard window. So without explosive play, you're going to limit everything on offense.
Teams just said, look, we're gonna keep Xavier Henderson from beating us, and we're gonna keep an eye on Royer, and whatever anybody else gets, fine. Like, we don't think it's going to be enough to beat us. And at the end of the season, they were right.
And I think that's why you saw Evan Pryor have that pop. It's because, you're like, all right, let's make Henderson. Limit Royer, limit Henderson. So you got two other receivers we're going to just take care of. But then, you have a running back running a wheel route or a screen or some sort of outside pass or run with the running back. It kind of like it can kind of like even that out in some ways. So I think that's why you had Pryor kind of really step up and make some big plays. But you can't like the moment you start relying on him, then the defense is going to adjust. And if he's in there to make those plays, it's a pretty good tell. You're going to be able to see that. Oh, Pryor's in, Kiner's not in. I wonder what the hell they're going to do with him. They're not going to run him in between the tackles and bruise it up like we did with Kiner. So, but I like having, I think losing Kiner but getting Tawi is a good, trade, because I think Tawi kind of has a similar style to Corey, and then you still have the wrinkle with Evan this year, and you're thinking he's only going to improve. So hopefully he can improve in between the tackles to kind of limit that tell on offense, and with receivers out there, we could become a more dynamic, more spread out type of offense with our talent.
Yeah, Chance Williams, right now probably fourth on that running back list. If I had to guess, just from going by what we saw in the spring, Evan Pryor and Tawi Walker are going to be your 1 and 2. I think that's expected at this point. And then I thought Manny Covey had a really good spring. And, they'll usually, Ryan can attest to this, you're not going to give your 1 and 2 guys a ton of reps in the spring because kind of what you have with those guys. Covey got a lot of looks in the spring, and I thought he looked really good. So
was that Iowa State where he stepped up?
Yeah, where everybody was
they were out. They were out of running backs.
He was the only back on the roster that was available. It's an interesting question, Crypt Keeper. How does a university know what a student athlete is worth? The market kind of determines that. The agent is going to kind of let you know, and you have to kind of trust that agent that they're being honest with you on what's being offered and what's on the table. But that's why you have a general manager. That's why you have a recruiting department, is to kind of gauge and determine what the ongoing value scale is across the country, across the landscape. Like, can we get this guy for this price? Can we get this type of guy for this price at this position of need? When you're managing, here's our budget and here's what we've got to spend. We've got this much to spend on that position. it's really difficult right now because everything changes so fast in this world. But yeah, it's a challenge. So that's those guys are earning their money trying to figure out what the value is on a high school kid, what the value is on the transfer portal at every position, and being able to keep things within your price range and understand what you're going to be able to go out and get for the money you've got available. There is no, I mean, this isn't the NFL where it's all pretty out in the open. Everybody knows what everybody signs for, and the market is set at certain prices. It's a lot of a guess. It will be interesting. This will be interesting now that tomorrow rev share starts. You know what that means? It means Freedom of Information Act requests can be filed for player contracts.
Gonna be bananas.
So we'll see exactly how that, how many people are going to go down that rabbit hole of what's this guy making, what's his contract with the school. Last season for Chance Williams, right? Yes.
I imagine every state-funded school is going to have somebody reporting on what everybody is making.
Yeah. So
it's going to make for some fun debate between the non-athletic side of the university. I'm sure there's going to be some anger associated with, this student is making $1 million, and
you don't think professors are going to like that?
The student press the student paper is going to have a field day.
Oh yeah.
Anything else on football?
I think we've covered all of football.
Yeah. Let's move over to basketball, where on the flip side, went into last season with very, very high expectations. The more and more we get away from it, and we see yet another season of how things are being done in the portal. I've mentioned this a lot, looking at the NBA and the way like the rosters for the Thunder were built, the way the roster for the Pacers was built. The more I think about it, the more I think the fundamental flaw with last year's roster was that the focus was on, let's just add as much talent as we can add and we'll make it fit. And I don't think that worked. I go back to, and again, I've said this before, this is not a shot at Dylan Mitchell. This is just an observation on what I saw. They added Dylan Mitchell late to a roster that at the time was going to have Simas Lukosius at the 4, Dan Skillings at the 3. And that's where those guys were going to get the majority of their minutes. You add Dylan Mitchell in. Dylan Mitchell, I think it might not even be that hard to argue, but I think Dylan Mitchell was probably the MVP of the team last season. He was the most consistent by far. You knew most every night what you were going to get from him. Yeah, there were some nights that, he didn't get, he had 2 or 3 or 4 shot attempts where they didn't get him involved in the offense as much as on other games. But you knew you were going to get effort. You knew you were going to get defense. You knew he was going to rebound the ball pretty well. And you knew he was going to generally chip in 8, 10 points, 12 points. But I think that addition of Mitchell came at the expense of the way the rest of the roster was constructed. And then Mitchell is going to play 25 minutes at the 4. That moves Simas off the 4. It moves Dan off the 3. Some of that also with Connor Hickman getting injured. You didn't have really, and CJ Frederick not being able to get out there. You didn't have a 2. So Dan had to play the 2. Like, it just felt like they were chasing all season what the right combination was, because the roster was built with too many combo forwards, not enough perimeter help. And it feels like, looking back in retrospect, like that's really what did them in more than anything. I don't know that there's an offensive scheme that could have fixed the way that the roster was constructed last year, the way that they had to play to have any type of success last year. So when looking back at 24-25, hopefully that's a lesson for this staff. And I think when you look at the roster construction this year, it feels a lot better, at least on paper, because it feels like you've got more groups of guys that can do different things than what you had a season ago. But ultimately, last year was a massive disappointment because that was a team that everybody looked at the talent on paper and said this talent should be very, very successful. And ultimately, that didn't happen. At 2 4-game losing streaks in the Big 12, they unfortunately, we talked about it ad nauseum, Aaron, in the post-game shows. They had too many games against teams they should have beat that ended up costing them an opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament.
They didn't have a shooting guard. I mean, kind of to your point, they didn't have a shooting guard. I'm not certain they fixed that issue this season, but I guess we'll see with some different combo guard stuff that they can do, and that remains to be seen.
At least you've got 4 or 5 options there now, Aaron, where last year, ultimately, they had 2.
Pretty much. And
at least you can throw more logs on the fire, I guess, this year to try to fix that problem. I agree. I don't think they went out and got a stud scoring guard.
No.
I don't think any of us believe that.
No. I don't know. Wes has shown himself to be a hell of a recruiter. I don't think that can be argued. And I think that, to your point, I think Wes falls in love with shiny new toys. And he gets excited about talent. And I don't know if that's on him. I don't know who on the staff it would be on as far as big picture, how you're going to fit the pieces together. But I would hope that having a guy who's been involved in an Oklahoma City build in Corey is going to give this team vision for looking for not necessarily the best and brightest talent that you can find, but who fits the scheme that you're trying to build this team around. We talk all the time about football culture, largely because Ryan was part of it. But I think that when you're looking to build a culture in the basketball locker room, I think you have to be looking not just for the guys who are gritty and things of that nature, but you also have to find leaders. You have to find guys who fit the scheme that you're trying to play in, whether that be offensively or defensively. And I think that got lost over the course of the last several seasons, just trying to find the best talent that you could put on this roster. And it wasn't necessarily guys who I think this team lacked a leader last season. We never really saw anybody stand out as a vocal leader on this team, especially when they had their backs against the wall or in those close games as things got down to the wire. You didn't ever see anybody take over as the guy on this team like a Troy Copain did, like an SK did. Like, we lacked that. There was no one on this team that was that. Jizzle tried. It just wasn't quite there. Day tried. Seamas gave up on it apparently after the season he had the season prior. I don't know what happened there. I guess playing out of position wrecked his head. I don't know. But we just never had a leader. So I don't know. I would hope that, seeing some of the personalities that they brought in this season, some of those things are fixed as far as the culture in the locker room, the leadership in the locker room. We've already heard, reports from Little Birdie saying that Day is stepping up as a vocal leader, which this should be his time to do so as a senior on this team. As a guy who's been in this system now for 3 seasons? This will be his 3rd season.
3rd year, yeah.
So you should be making that type of a leap as a guy on this team. So those are some of the concerns that I had, but I don't know.
And this is, I say it's not to pile on a guy like Dan, but it kind of is to pile on a guy like Dan. It was his 3rd season in the program last year, and he was the guy that was there the longest, and he was the guy that was expected. That everybody looks to the guys that have been here the longest for cues, for the way that things are done. And I don't think he had a good offseason last year. And I've confirmed that with people in and around the program that said he was not the hardest worker throughout the offseason last year. And that very clearly, I think, trickled down throughout the program. I think it was evident that guys were not, it's the work that you don't put in the offseason will show up when the chips are down. And when the chips were down, that did not look like a team that had put in the work in the offseason. Just plain and simple. Like that's the easiest way I can put it. I don't think Dan had a good offseason last year, and I think the team followed his lead.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Day trying to step up in a similar way to how Dan was looked to the year prior. But I think there's a stark difference in the type of leader, the type of person and player that Day is versus Dan. They both play hard. Like that was part of Dan's MO. It was like, oh, he's gonna hustle. He's gonna get to the boards. He's gonna get those extra hustle buckets
but he didn't
and play fat. No, and he didn't. And that got away from him, and he didn't put in the work to kind of take his jump shot to the level we thought he was going to. But the point I'm trying to get to is that I think we're in a better spot this year looking at a guy like Day Thomas to take that next step as a leader than we are with Dan last year. I think the opportunity for success is higher with a guy like Day Thomas to step up and grow into that leadership position this season versus what we were expecting out of Dan.
He was one of the only guys who showed improvement last season.
Yeah.
I also
Chad,
think a guy like I also think a guy like Buck Harris, although he's coming in, I don't think you're going to ask him to be a vocal leader. From what I know of Harris, he is very much lead by example. Get your ass in the gym, get your ass to work, like type guy. And you have to have those type of guys that set your culture, that say, we're going to be here. We got done, say they have a morning practice and you get done and you get your lift in and you're done by noon. You can't be the team that just says, okay, we're done today at noon. You need to be the team that has a couple guys that say, guess what? We're running open gym at 6 tonight. Go home, get off your legs, get a little bit of rest, get to the kitchen, get to the dining room, get your food in, get your work done. And then we're getting back here at 6. And we're going to put in another hour and a half of work on our own. And I just don't think they had a lot of that last year. Like the open gym stuff from last year, it was short. It wasn't as spirited as it has been in many, many years that I've been doing this. I think that's something that I think you're going to see a lot more of this offseason, where guys are putting in the work and about the right things when it comes to that.
Yeah, that's much needed. And you were mentioning before how we kind of like threw a roster together last year, and you kind of had like additions that kind of messed up the flow of things in like the starting 5 and the first 2 off the bench. What do you think is different about this year? Because we added a lot of guys that are expecting to play a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
And there's going to be there's not enough minutes to go around with the amount of guys we brought in from the portal, but that's just the way of the beast right now in college basketball. It's like NBA, but it's like the NBA, but it's more difficult because you're adding more guys that can play. It's like our 6th and 7th, 8th, 9th guy off the bench is not what it's like in the NBA, where you really have like that 6 and 7 guy in the NBA. They could go out there and produce, but that 8 and 9 guy, it's that you're not expecting those guys to come in and contribute, and they're not expecting to get the type of minutes that these guys are going to be expecting. What do you think is different about this offseason with more shiny new toys, arguably more toys that expect more play? How is Wes going to balance that, and how is he going to be able to instill the chemistry, the sync, being in sync, everyone on the same page with their role, and overall getting back to that gritty, tough, nasty Cincinnati style of basketball.
I mean, that part's going to be fascinating. That's,
Yeah.
you know, there's not a lot of it that's happened so far. They've done 3 weeks of the summer workout program. A lot of that is, we've talked about skill development. They're not doing a lot of like 5-on-5 stuff yet. You'll see that when they come back from the 4th of July. I think everybody's off this week. And then they'll come back next week and get into it pretty aggressively for the rest of the month of July to start to try to find that, you know, that rhythm or that chemistry on who plays well with who plays off of who. Like you're going to have to, I think there's going to have to be a lot of like experimentation on, you know, a lot of times at this time of year, like you kind of know what your 5 is going to look like. So you can start your starting 5. You can start practicing with those 5 guys. I think we all expect probably Jizzle to start. I think we all expect Chom to start. The other 3 spots, I mean, Day or Krisa, Abayev, Celestine,
Harris,
Haynes, Baba Miller, like 2, 3, 4. There's going to be some significant battles for playing time at those spots, and it's going to be interesting to. I mentioned him, yeah, like with the 3 and the 4, he fits in at kind of both of those questions. You know, so it's going to be interesting to see kind of what the philosophy is on how many different are you coming in every day and both teams are going to be completely different. You know, it's like football. There's an offense and a defense, and basketball, there's a red team and there's a black team. And a lot of times through the summer, if you like last year, you knew who your main guys were going to be. Those guys were on one team. The other guys were on the other team. Now, what's that mix and match going to be like? What's that formula that Wes is going to use? If he finds one that works on Tuesday, does he run it back on Wednesday and say, let's see what these guys look like with a second day? That part's going to be fascinating as they go through July to kind of figure out where this thing is headed, because, you know, you've got, even if like, let's just say you're playing Krisa as a combo guard and he's going to play more 2 than he is 1. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying hypothetically. You've got Jizzle, Day and Tillery at the 1. You've got Krisa and Harris as guards, and Jizzle and Day can both move down to the 2. Tillery's not going to be anything but a 1, I don't think, this year. Like we said at the 3, Harris can be a 3rd guard. You've got Abaya, you've got Celestine. At the 4, you've got Haynes and Miller and Tyler McKinley. At the 5, you've got Chom and Haynes, and McKinley a little bit, I think, can play there. Damn it, what's his name, Aaron? The French guy.
Oh, Halvin.
Yeah,
Halvin.
Halvin's name
evaded
me briefly. But you've got a lot of options at all those different positions that they didn't have last year. The only place it felt like they had a logjam was the 4, and Dylan was clearly the best of those guys. So the logjam wasn't much of a logjam. It was you've got a bunch of guys that aren't going to see the floor because Dylan's going to be on the court at the 4 for 30 minutes a game. So I think that part of it is going to be fascinating, Ryan, is just to how Wes is going to manage this, because I just rattled off 11 guys that are going to expect a lot of minutes.
Yeah. And you know what I think, that piggybacking off what you mentioned before about the open gym, I think the coaches only get so much time with these guys. They're going to be able to mix and match, and these guys are only going to be getting so many hours in the gym under official practice time. But getting in that 1 to 2 extra hours in those open gyms, playing with each other, getting in extra chemistry, mixing lineups up, getting after it, like that's going to be even more critical when you have this kind of insane depth and kind of mixing and matching that needs to be done here. So these guys, it's a lot of it's going to fall on them too, by being able to go out there and kind of play together on their own. And because when you have this many different pieces that are going to mix in so many different ways, like you got to find extra time to kind of build that chemistry up that's extra, because we're in an extra type of scenario here. It's not like you got your 7 figured out already. You got 9 guys that you got to mix and match. And so these guys are going to have to put in that work on their own to start figuring out who plays best with each other, who has finding out like how they don't even know really how all these guys play. You know, they played against some of them.
Right.
And they might know each other in some ways through AAU, but you know, this is a new year. These guys are going to have new stuff in their bag, and they're going to have to be able to play with each other and know how to work off each other. So extra time is going to be much needed. But I think we can all agree upon, you know, Aaron, you mentioned Wes likes shiny new toys, and he's a great recruiter. And I think last year you kind of saw like, oh, we got this roster. Let's just let these guys go out there and play. These guys are good. They're gonna be better than they were last year. But shots weren't falling, and when we needed to get a rebound, when we needed to get a stop, when we needed to get a 50-50 ball, we were never there to do it. And I think it's because you had a bunch of guys kind of thrown together, and the skill kind of overtook, you know, that really important like toughness side of things that is what made Cincinnati basketball so successful throughout the decades. So being able to realize we got a lot of guys that are talented, but the core needs to be not the amount of talent we have, it's how hard and how well they play together. And you mentioned it 2 weeks ago when they put the medicine ball in the rim, and it's just a dogfight out there to go get, like, that needs to be an emphasis every practice.
Every
and
day.
that needs
Yep.
that needs to be an emphasis on these guys' own when they're out there doing their own open gyms. Like, that needs to be at the forefront of what we try to improve. And I know it's kind of cliche for me. It's like, oh, I'm the football guy. And, you know, I obviously don't know X's and O's at all when it comes to basketball, and it's kind of like stereotypical for me to be like, given the meathead answer, like, oh, these guys got to be tougher. They got to go grind, blah, blah, blah. They don't need to worry about, you know, jump shots and all that stuff. But I think I actually have a point here when it comes to this, because you really saw us get away from that in this previous season. So, you know, I believe Wes seems to have his finger on the pulse of that needs to change. So as long as they keep hammering away at that and improve in that regard, you will see positive results this season.
They got pushed around last year. They got pushed around.
Can you imagine last year's roster doing the medicine ball practice? I can't even picture it.
There might be some TikTok dances during the medicine ball. You know, it would be awesome. I don't know what Wes is. I
was doing the Macarena.
Yeah, what Wes's principle is on like having guys back, because you know the guys come back, they get honored at games, they get to go in the locker room and talk to guys. But I don't know all the ins and outs of that. But you know, having these guys like come into a practice and not like run the practice, but just be able to kind of like sit down and like
they have guys back all the time. I know John Newman was back last week
with a haircut
last week.
Yeah, I saw that. It looks like a new man. But even like, you know, these guys being able to kind of like explain to these players that, because a lot of them, they don't know, they're rentals, like we said, being able to come in there and, you know, explain like why they were able to do the things they were able to do, the types of work ethic, the types of practice ethic and weight room and outside of practice, just being able to tap into the guys and really stress the importance, or being able to have these guys come back and, you know, just sit in and watch these guys practice at an open gym, be able to kind of get a good pulse of, you know, where are we at? Where do we need to get better? So I think that would be a help, but you know, that's not really, I can't go out there and tell Wes to go, hey, you go have Bring SK back and have him run an open gym.
Look, I mean, I can tell you this: like they knew, like one of the reasons the first 3 guys you saw added in the portal were Creasa, Harris, and Big Slime. They know they needed to get their attitude back. Like they know, well aware that the toughness was not at the mandatory level a season ago.
It might be an easy one to get to come back and run open gym. He wants to get into coaching. He's put it out there on Twitter. Might be an easy one.
Start him out with open gym coach.
Except SK will want him out there until 2 a.m.
Hey, 2 a.m. at this point in the off season, that's not going to kill you.
That's not terrible.
So,
yeah. Women's basketball. I think they took a step last year in year 2 under Katrina Merriweather. It looks like the roster is going to be more talented. It'll be interesting. Adding in D. Alexander, you're adding in a top 10 recruit, a McDonald's All-American for the first time in program history. I'm fascinated to see like where this thing trends because the talent is elevating. Now let's see the results kind of get on that same level and elevate as well.
The coaching staff for the women's for the women's basketball team, they've done a lot of stuff outside of University of Cincinnati. They've been involved in national teams. They've been involved in just a lot of other different things outside of collegiate athletics to try and build experience, build their resume, if you will. And I'm curious now that you've got the talent in there to see what Trina Merriweather is all about, because I think that she's got as good a chance as any at this point in time. I think that they've been trending up over the course of the last couple seasons, and now
look, man, Aaron, they were bad. Like they
when
were
she
bad
took over.
when she got here.
Yeah. It wasn't
bad.
So I'm certainly keeping an eye on what they've got going on, because I think that first off, she's super great to talk to every time that she's been on with us, and if we can find excuses to bring her and her staff back on with us, because things are going really well, then it makes our job even easier. But I think that there's a lot to be excited about if you are a women's basketball fan of, especially at the University of Cincinnati.
And then baseball is the other, very notable development in the 2024-2025 season. Jordan Bishel got those boys rolling. He got them into the NCAA tournament. They played well. They picked up a big win. Obviously didn't have the pitching, but man, if you look at what they've done in the transfer portal, they've got one of the better transfer portal classes in the country. And it is starting pitching. Like they understood. I love this from Jordan Bishel. This is where we weren't good enough. We have to get better. And they went out and they addressed it immediately.
I think it'll be interesting. I feel like everything that I've seen for the additions has been pitching. So I don't know if I'm missing something, but it'll be interesting to see who fills Carrington, who fills his shoes.
And Vitterick as well.
Yeah, those are massive shoes to fill. We saw a lot from some of the freshmen on the team last season. So I think that there certainly are some guys who could elevate their game over the course of the offseason, especially with the IPF in full force for the baseball team to be able to use during the offseason as well. So I don't know. I think we're all high right now on baseball, and I think that God, I don't know why he hasn't been given an extension yet. I don't know. That's Chad's gone.
Yeah,
but I don't know. You've got to get something going with Bishel, because he's had the most success out of any of your coaches here, and I'd be
look,
I'm
they
I'm
know
still
that in that building. Like
sure.
he'll be taken care of. I don't think that is it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and I don't think the win will be too long from now. They know,
Well,
they have to make a commitment to Jordan Bishop.
I know he was going to. He had mentioned he was going to Disney World the week after the College World Series because he doesn't plan any vacations until after. He plans them well in advance, but he plans them after the College World Series because he doesn't want to be in a situation, despite whatever may happen.
Because his expectations are
College World
we're
Series
going to the College World Series.
Yep. So maybe that's why, because that just ended last week as well. So
yeah, look, I have no doubt in my mind that they understand they have to do whatever they can to keep that guy here. He has been spectacular.
Yep. And I think his brand of baseball breeds consistency. So they're gonna be who they are, and they're gonna steal bags, they're gonna steal runs, they're gonna bunt guys over to steal even more runs. So they're not just like, they don't need every year to have like they don't need a top transfer portal in the conference. They don't need a top recruiting class in the conference to be able to keep staying consistent and pushing that College World Series on the yearly. But this proven success is only going to increase their ability in the portal, going to increase their ability in recruiting. And, with rev share, they're going to be able to get more money from the athletic department. So I think Jordan Bishop is not going anywhere, and this team is not going to just fall off a cliff randomly. They're going to be pushing that College World Series every single year, and then I think they're going to keep growing, and they're going to be making it out of that first round. And, I completely agree on the point that need to sign him, and I agree, Chad, that I think that's I'm pretty confident they're going to make that happen too.
I'd be shocked if it doesn't happen sooner than later. Like, I think you want to make that statement to your baseball program. You probably would have, preferred to have done it while the portal was open, but they've got a top 10, according to one of the metrics, they've got a top 10 portal class. So to be able to go out and do that on the back of what they did this year, and then you keep Nate Taylor, your ace,
massive.
And, now you've got something to build around. You've got your Friday
catcher back.
Yeah,
you got your starting catcher back too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what it probably is? Bishop's probably asking for some crazy bonus clause with something to do with Mountain Dew that Cunningham's Cunningham's mulling over. Do I really need to give him an extra $1 million for Mountain Dew? But I think he's worth it. So John, if you're listening, kind of bend the knee for the Mountain Dew. Don't push too hard on him.
Not regular. He doesn't do. Yeah. He does unleaded. Yeah. Unleaded.
My bad.
All right.
He should get our NIL gurus on that Mountain Dew deal, that Diet Mountain Dew deal for him. Right?
I mean, I respect the guy. The guy was pushing it hard during the
every
NCAA
time
tournament.
But
every time he had
that'd be your Mount Everest if you're an NIL guy and you're able to land a deal like that for your head coach of baseball. Put that on your resume.
Right.
Something tells me they might be a little bit more focused on the players NIL before a soft drink deal for the head coach.
Just get the soft drink deal done for the head coach.
Yeah,
I agree. From there.
It's a great side quest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's for something I wasn't sure how we were gonna fill this first hour. I think we crushed it.
Yeah.
It's a look back at the year that was and a look ahead at what needs to happen as we go into year 3 in the Big 12. Brought to you by our good friends at Quick Paper Supply. We're going to change it up today on the timestamps. Quick Paper wants to put a plug in for their upcoming Canes, Ohio 10U tryouts for the 2026 season. Their next weekend, July 8th at Moeller's new baseball complex. If you're interested, you got somebody on the 10 and under level that wants to try out, reach out to Nick. Get signed up, 513-470-2029. Let's get to Ripping with Royer, Brent's favorite segment. Brent's not here. Were you and we weren't texting because I forgot Brent was going to be gone. So I don't know if you and Brent were texting. We'll get to that at the end, but
Yeah.
let's do some riffing with Royer.
All right. What has been your most exciting addition between football and basketball to their programs? So it could be like retaining a player, or a player in the portal, or like a coaching change, something like that.
I think for me, it's got to be Joe Cotton, because that was the one thing we looked at football and said that they don't know what they're going to do at left tackle. And if you don't know what you're going to do at left tackle, your entire offense is kind of up for grabs. Like, that is outside of quarterback, and they had quarterback, handled with Sorsby. You had to go out, and not only did you have to go out and get it done, but you missed it in the winter portal. They thought they had somebody lined up. It fell through at the last minute. And then you come back in the spring and you get the number one offensive tackle in the spring portal. I think that is a really one we talked about. It's a really good sign that if they are understanding that they've got one thing that they need to get done, they can go out and make that happen. And I thought it, just kind of sets everything else across the offensive line into place. And we didn't know. They were experimenting left tackle and right tackle, moving guys around. That went from practice 1 of the spring through practice 15 of the spring. And then as soon as spring ends, bang, you're able to put Joe Cotton right in there at left tackle and say, this is our guy that we're going to anchor that offensive line around. And he's a guy they believe has NFL talent, NFL ability. I think for me, that was across all of the sports. I think that was the one, just grand slam that they were able to connect on in a situation where they knew they had to have it.
I think we should do both football and basketball for this question, Chad. So if you want to think
he said he wanted the most important one across all of them.
I'm just
and it's
saying.
Joe Cotton. I know.
Well, I think it's Christian Harrison. And I think that I say that because Christian Harrison comes from a family of football, and not just a little, like his dad played in the league. Not just that, he was an all-pro in the league. And I think that him making the transfer from Tennessee to Cincinnati gives this team more pedigree than I think maybe even we gave them credit for. He's going to play for a coach that I can't imagine he was making this decision on his own. He's talking to his dad. He's figuring some things out. So you've got a kid whose father was an all-pro, coming to play for Scott Satterfield in a time where Scott's seat isn't the coolest seat in the house right now. I mean, it's also not the hottest seat, but it's probably a little warm. So he's coming here. I think that going to play for Tyson Vite, that's a kind of a feather in Tyson Vite's cap, that he believes in this defense enough to make that move. It's not as if Cincinnati was his only option. So I don't know. I think that it gives this team a bit of cachet that it hasn't had. I mean, when was the last time an NFL player's son came to Cincinnati? It's been a long time.
One of the Kelsey sons will probably be the next one.
They don't have any. Jason's got 4 daughters.
Yeah, that's true. Who knows? Maybe the Travis Taylor baby will be the next great UC quarterback.
So I don't know. I think to me that just we talk about this team trending in the right direction. I think that there's been all sorts of signs this offseason, but that I think was probably one of the biggest signs in the offseason that everything was going the way that we want it to go when you have a kid who is a dynasty type player coming here.
Yeah. All right, next question. What do you think would catapult the program more, a football Big 12 championship or a basketball Big 12 championship?
Aaron, you can go first this time.
I think nationally, it would be a football championship. I think it would would blow everyone's minds if they won a national championship in football over the SEC, over the Big Ten.
I meant
And I think
conference championship.
Conference.
I say
Conference championship.
conference championship. Sorry. Then I think that changes things. At that point, you're probably, I don't know. I'll still go football. Just, I think the fan base
Football.
For the fans, it's probably basketball. But again, just national recognition, I think, is still football. Just more people would talk about it. You'd have people talking about it all over ESPN, all over Fox, all over.
I don't think so.
CBS.
Did they talk about Arizona State all that much? They didn't. Like, I just don't think the Big 12 is looked at in football as, I think it's such a tight conference that it's looked at as somebody has to win it. I think if Cincinnati won it, they'd be like, the conversation would be, okay, Cincinnati's back to playing top of the conference type
then you're in
football that they were playing a couple years ago.
Then you're in the CFP, and if you're able to pull one out in the CFP, then
yeah. But basketball, you beat Houston, Kansas, Arizona, like you beat some juggernauts,
blue bloods,
blue bloods to win a basketball conference championship. I think that would be something that, because then you would have the lead up all through February. Is Cincinnati going to win the Big 12? A hoops champ is a 1 seed national title contender. I still think a football champion is probably a 10 seed in a 12 team playoff, and a 9 seed in a 12 team playoff. Now
depends on how many
with true seeding.
Depends on how many wins you had. If you were undefeated, I still think an undefeated is going to be higher than a 10 seed.
Yeah, but that wasn't the question. The question is if you won a Big 12 championship.
I'm making hypotheticals all over the place here. It's fine.
I don't know that we're going to see an undefeated Big 12 champion for a long time.
You're probably right.
So close. I think basketball, if you win a regular season Big 12 championship in basketball with as tough as the league is, I think that would be the bigger headline, Ryan.
Yeah.
Not that football winning wouldn't get a massive headline. I just don't think the Big 12 gets the respect when compared to the Big 10 and the SEC that the Big 12 does in basketball in compared to their peers. I think it's looked that different.
Yeah. Good point.
Got another one?
I do. If you could pick one athletic program at UC to be the head coach of right now, which one would you pick?
None. That's a lot of work.
I know, but I'm not saying you're obviously not going to be an expert in any of them. But you thinking like potential, roster, overall, like what do you think would be the most fun to kind of go through a season with?
I don't think I'd want basketball because I think that kind of to the point you made in the last question, Chad, that is a juggernaut of a schedule.
Yeah.
What is basketball? They have this recruiting class they put together is unbelievable. You have a lot of potential. You got a lot of future talent there.
You're also looking over at Kelvin Sampson and Bill Self and Tommy Lloyd. And I was thinking golf, Marcus. I was thinking golf. Golf was on my brain. Golf was on my brain. Doug does a great job. I don't want Doug's job. Doug's, as everybody knows, Doug is very much a favorite here at Bearcat Journal. But
I wouldn't want him to go anywhere.
No, he's not.
He's a legend.
I think you're out on the course. You get to work in the practice facility with the golf bays. In the winter months when it's cold, you don't have to be out. You can work on your swing in the simulators. And then during the spring and the fall, you get to hang out on golf courses. You're going to go golf.
I think I'm going to go football because half the fan base would love you because you're simply not Scott Satterfield. I think that kind of what we've been talking about is the teams are so close that you've probably got a coin flip chance to win pretty much any game. I think this is the most complete roster that they've put together at this point. I'd want to make sure that those guys were locked in for the entirety that I was here.
One reason recruiting. I think I'd go with your angle, Aaron, too, is you can be a CEO coach. Your offensive coordinator does the offense. Your defensive coordinator does the defense. You got Jack and Zach and Cass and those guys running recruiting.
What's different about that than what it's like for Wes, though? Can Wes not be as much of a CEO as Scott can?
You don't really have like coordinators in basketball. I know it's become a little bit more of a thing. You could probably go down that route if you want. With the larger, now that they've got 5 assistants, you could probably bring in, this guy's going to run offense, this guy's going to run defense. I'm gonna kind of handle down the middle. Just stand on the touchline.
Fire Aaron Chance by halfway through quarter 1.
Oh boy. Yeah, I'll go golf. I get football though. I think football you could be the guy in the big office that gives great power and responsibility to the hires that he makes.
Right. So I was texting with Brent.
Okay.
Late at night.
Okay.
You know, he's on vacation, so he's been out at the beach all day.
It's good he's answering you. He hasn't answered Aaron all day.
I guess he has a favorite. I don't think anyone would guess that I'm his favorite when it comes to
no one would have guessed that ever.
No. So I mean, I was talking to Brent. You know, he's like, yeah, Ryan, I've been having a bunch of pina coladas. I'm feeling pretty good. And I was like, oh, you're feeling good. Well, what do you do? What's your best feel good day, your agenda in the city of Cincinnati? So you get into Cincinnati, like Aaron, for example, you get in the night before, you got the whole day planned out tomorrow. And let's just say every sports season is in season. You can go to any sporting game you want in the city. You can go to any restaurant you want, go see anything you want, visit any part of town. What is your ultimate favorite Cincinnati experience?
That's a good one.
Start the day
you
off.
got to go to one place to eat. You got to do one activity or two or something. Go ahead.
Start the day off at Taste of Belgium because it's amazing. Get the chicken and waffle every time. I don't know what anything else really tastes like on their menu. I've gotten a side of Geta a couple times, but it's always chicken and waffle. Actually, I think they call it waffle and chicken there. But in any case, and probably have a beverage or two. Then I don't know. Cincinnati's got a lot of nice parks, so I'd probably go check out like Alt Park, maybe. Something like that. Probably drive around for a little bit before, just working up an appetite to go into Skyline for lunch because while I'm in town, it's a staple. I don't get it out here. The nearest one is up near Columbus and Canal Winchester. So that's nowhere near here at all. So probably do Skyline for lunch. Then I think I'm going to hit up the Crosstown Shootout. That would be ideal. Because if it's football, I'm working, and that's not ideal. So I would.
No Bengals team, man. I'm surprised you didn't hit one.
I mean, I do that, but if it's my ideal day, I'm going to the Crosstown Shootout because there is not an environment I've ever been to like the Crosstown Shootout.
I got one. So Crosstown's normally right around 2:00. Bengals night game. Let's say there's a night game for the Bengals, 8:00 kick. You could go hit that too.
I'm
He wouldn't
I
be able
don't
to
know.
walk by then.
Man.
Wouldn't be able to walk.
I probably need a nap in between somewhere. Like I'm sleeping in a car at the I'm not actually tailgating. I'm
He'd
sleeping.
be on two shoulders walking into the Bengals game.
Yeah. And let's say you catch a floating coney coming from the rafters too at the Crosstown shootout too.
Nice.
I like the shootout idea. The only problem with that, it's in December. So that kind of
so it's football.
Yeah. Well, football is also in October and August and September, and like December, that's a tough one to be out and about around town.
I went to a Bengals game last year in late December. It was the last game of December, and it was like we were just in a hoodie and jeans, like just it was nice.
Because that's very
I think it was
common.
like,
It's usually
super uncommon. We got super
nice
lucky
in December here.
Super lucky.
So I think to really to me, I think, and we've gotten away from it because they've been bad for so long, but like part of growing up for me, like it is a Reds game. So I think it would have to center around a Reds game. Skyline for lunch, that's easy. It would have been for me. It would have been Island Fridays for lunch, but Island Fridays is no longer
R.I.P.
An option.
R.I.P.
They have a food truck now that was awesome. I've had it once.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So doesn't pop
gone
up
but not forgotten.
Yeah, it shows back up occasionally. So Skyline for lunch, maybe a little afternoon Reds game, and then I think I think Jeff Ruby's has become like the Cincinnati culinary thing, in terms of like fine dining. And it's good. It's very good. I think, if you've been, I really like Third and Main in comparison to Ruby's, but Third and Main is in Indiana and it doesn't hold the juice that like going to Jeff Ruby's downtown or going to the precinct is going to do for you. So, get up in the morning, maybe have some Geta, go somewhere, get your Skyline, go to a 2:00 Reds game, and then a 7:00 meal at Ruby's. I think you get the full Cincinnati experience downtown.
You know what place I went to that I thought was up there with the precinct for best fine dining was Nicola's down in OTR. Yeah. That was one of the. I had their Italian beef Wellington. It was with like lamb. Oh, it was phenomenal. So if you guys haven't been,
I think you have to throw Soto onto the mix.
Yeah,
that's
Soto's good too. Really good.
I'm going in like a week and a half.
Let's go. When'd you make those reservations on in December?
The girlfriend made them a while back and just like informed me, hey, on July 11th we're going to Soto, and I was like, okay, I guess on July 11th we're going to Soto.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah,
are you gonna get the bistecca, the feed 5 steak?
Maybe it's just two of us, and she eats like a bird.
Yeah.
So I might power through and just hammer.
You got to get the little donut balls.
Oh yeah, she already has informed me that is that's happening at dessert. So
nice. Enjoy. That'll be fun.
Yeah. All right, that brings us to another timestamp. We'll actually do the real read this time. Quick Paper Supply, your local and family-owned restaurant supply company for all your non-food products. They service over 150 restaurants with weekly low minimum next day deliveries, providing a wide range of food service products from to-go containers, cups, custom printed products, eco-friendly, and much more. They also have cleaning and restroom supplies for all your janitorial needs. Call Nick 513-470-2029 and reference Bearcats for 20% off your first month of purchases. All right, Aaron, mailbag, rounding third and heading for home.
All right, let's get this mailbag going. Start out in the football portion of the mailbag as we always do. Which future P5 and G5 matchups would you guys like to see for UC? Could be realistic or not.
Wisconsin.
Ooh, that would be awesome.
That would be fun. That would be I would hate it because I love those guys so much, but
yeah.
Wisconsin and G5, it's got to be Memphis, right? Like such a history with them dating back so many different years. Maybe Tulane. I guess they're on the come up. But in terms of like history and whatever, I think I'd go Memphis.
Louisville.
Yeah. I just stay away from Louisville and Kentucky because they play each other and they're not going to put another Power 5 game in that slot opposite. You know what I mean? G5, who you got, Aaron?
G5, let's see. If we're going a home and away matchup with a G5 team, I don't know. I mean, UConn, you could kick their teeth in. But I don't know. Nobody really stands out as like, man, I really want to play this G5 team.
Yeah, that's why I think Memphis is the easy answer, just because there's history
outside of the American. And even then, there's plenty of teams on the American slate that you wouldn't want to go back to.
Aaron, ban MDOT right now. Get him out of here. I'm kidding. Navy. Get out of here.
Navy 2017.
Get out of here.
The greatest defensive performance in UC history.
Are we still saying
geared up for that one, boy?
Are we still considering the Pac-12 P5? I mean,
no, they're not. They're group of 6 or whatever.
Right. So I guess it's not P5 and G5 anymore. It's P4 and G6 at this point.
Yeah.
So
App State would be cool. Yeah. There's nothing to really gain if you lose to App State, though.
Just the Satterfield tie.
I know. But like if you win that game, nobody really cares. And if you lose, I mean, I guess that's the same with any G5 you play at this point.
Pretty much. So anybody to add, Ryan?
Notre Dame. Are they group of 5?
They're independent, so they do not qualify for this question.
Group of 5. I love the Wisconsin one. That's great. Group of 5. I'm trying to think that Memphis was a good poll. I can't really think of anyone else that would top that one.
Oregon State was fun back in the 2000s. That for me, that is my seminal moment. That UC football had arrived was the first Oregon State game on a Thursday night at Nippert, and that place was rocking. And that was the first like, oh, this can really be like this, like all the time, and not just like an occasional fleeting experience. Moving on.
All right. Moving on. That is the end of the football portion of the mailbag. Moving on to the basketball portion of the mailbag. Based off public info, Dayton, Xavier, Louisville, any behind-the-scenes conversations, plus any behind-the-scenes conversations, is Wes scheduling like someone confident of making tournament/securing a high seed?
That's bait. I'm not playing that game. I'm not getting into the off-season scheduling conversation with you crazy people. I don't know if you're part of it, Kunap. he's scheduling like he thinks he's got a good team. I mean, is it going to be a backbreaker? No, I don't expect that. I've talked many times. I expect one more neutral site game for sure against an SEC opponent. And then they're trying for one more after that, a fifth one after that. That I don't have any info on that one specifically. I don't know. Tonk, it's just going to be you and Keegan in Frisco. Big 12 Media Days next week, Tuesday, I think.
Best friends.
I have not seen the jersey, M. Dot. I've heard what is expected, but I have not seen it.
Thanks for the donation, Tonk.
Appreciate you, Tonk.
If the strong rumor that the Players Era tournament will expand to 32 teams from this year's 18 comes to fruition in 2026, how important is it that the Bearcats are one of the 14 new teams added?
On a scale of 1 to 5, a 1.
Oh, added to the Vegas field next year, given the original 18 teams invited have a 3-year deal to play.
A 1. I don't think it's that important. I think it'd be cool if they were added to it. Do I think it's important for them to be added to it? No.
I think that's probably where we all lie on that one.
Yeah, it'd be cool to watch them playing it, but
is this the best offensive talent on a roster with Wes? What points per game would you like to see make the tournament this season? I don't know.
I think it's a good mix. I don't know that it's a team that's busting at the seams with offensive talent. I think there are some guys that are skilled offensively. But I think you're good on that, M. Dot. I'll leave it at that. I think you're good on that. I mean, yeah, you've got some guys that offensively can produce. Jizzle and Day have shown they can be solid contributors. I think you'd like to see another jump from both of them, but Carisa's done it at a high level in the league. Celestine's been an offensive threat, probably more at Cal than he was last year at Baylor.
Yeah.
But Haynes has got some chops. Baba Miller's got some chops. Chom, I don't think you're counting on him to be a guy that's going to take 10, 12, 13 shots a game, but I think he can be efficient. But I'm not looking at this as like they're going to win with offense type roster. I think they're going to, the way this is built, they're going to have to do it with some balance. And that's why you've added some guys that are defensive specialists. You've got some guys that can score. I think it's going to be a mix. But I don't see this as a team that's, I'm not gonna blow smoke up the fan base's ass and tell them this team's going to score 100 points like people across town did last year leading into the season. I think it's more of there's going to be ways that you can score in the 80s at times, or you can win scoring in the 60s. So that's what I think.
And the last question in the basketball portion of the mailbag, looking at in-game coaching, what is one thing Wes excels at, and what is one thing you'd like to see improve?
I think defensively, they've been really solid since he's been here. Like, I think that's the staple of what he wants to do is he's going to have a top 25 level defense. I think that's clearly been their MO in Wes's 4 seasons. Like to see improve offensive efficiency. Got to get that up into the 40s at least. They flirted with that at the beginning of last year, and then when it fell off, boy, it was like a rock after every game watching that offensive efficiency number plummet. I don't think it's good enough to be in the top 50. I think you got to get up in the top 40, push it a little higher. If you're going to have a top 25 defense, I think your offense, the teams that are successful, the teams that win the most are the teams that can be consistent with both. MDOT rotations are bad. If you don't have great players, the rotations are going to be bad.
I was going to make the joke that he excels at hockey style rotations. And what I would like to see improve is him leaving the hot hand in the game longer. But I digress.
That's just
What you got,
you're
Ryan?
not understanding what hockey rotations are again.
I think he obviously excels in like recruiting and like getting guys in from the portal, but I think one thing that he needs to improve on is establishing the Cincinnati brand of toughness and culture, and how that will translate to rebounding and defense, and, you know, getting out of lulls and breaking down runs by the other team and responding with runs of our own. I think that's the most critical need going into next season.
Yeah, I think he excels at, like you said, just putting a team together as far as talent goes. Whether the pieces all fit, that remains to be seen. But one thing I'd like to see improve is find a shooting guard. I would love to see an actual shooting guard on this team. I think that would make a giant difference for the offense to have an actual shooting guard.
Yeah, I mean, has he had one?
No.
And Landers was more of a 3-4 than he was a 2.
Right. He has not had one.
Dave was a lead guard, ball dominant lead guard more than he was an off the ball scorer.
He has not had one.
No,
at all.
They're not going to have one
too
this
much.
year.
They cost too much.
They are expensive. They are not cheap. Not cheap.
Crazy. All right. That ends the basketball portion of the mailbag. Moving on to the baseball portion of the mailbag. How long until Jordan Bischel's new contract is announced? I'm with you. Do you think Nate Taylor was given more in revenue share / NIL than Jordan Bischel's current $400,000 plus contract?
No. Soon and no.
That ends the baseball portion of the mailbag. And the last question coming from the Banks. Probably my favorite question out of the mailbag. What's on your grill this weekend? Anything new you're looking forward to trying? It is the 4th of July for those of you who are wondering.
I don't know about anything new. You know what I did do yesterday or Saturday, Aaron, is I told you about the new Mexican grocery store that we've got up the street from us.
Yeah.
They do like a pre-seasoned al pastor with the pineapples already cut up in it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we made tacos with that al pastor on Saturday. It was outstanding. It was so good. I came home and I cooked it on a skillet when we did the tacos. I came home and I fried it and I made a quesadilla later that night. That was outstanding.
Nice.
I don't know. I screwed up the ribs the last time I did them. I don't know what happened. I think when the auger for the smoker went out, I think it's when we fixed it, it messed up the temperature settings because it torched those ribs. And I had it on I cooked them at like 225 and then bumped them up to 250. And when I took them off the grill out of the wrap, it was not good. I was devastated.
Toast.
Father's Day kind of ruined Father's Day for me. But I was so mad at myself. Everybody's like, it's okay. And I'm like, the hell it is. I wanted ribs. I don't know. What about you, Aaron? You know anything new?
I haven't given it any thought. I'll be completely honest. But now that I'm giving it thought, I'll probably, weather permitting, of course. I want to be out doing something on the Blackstone, whether it's dogs and burgers one day, or trying to do like hibachi. The family loves when I do the hibachi out on the Blackstone. It's phenomenal. It's really I have shrimp nachos, or I'm sorry, shrimp tacos that I make out there that are really good as well. And I definitely want to get something going in the smoker for like an appetizer on July 4th because I haven't.
I'll
really
give you an
used it.
appetizer. I'll give you an appetizer. It actually, when we were in Florida, we ate at an egg roll food truck that had like 14 different kinds of egg rolls, like from all around the world.
Yeah.
And you know what one of them was, Aaron?
I don't.
Hibachi. It was an egg roll with fried rice, the steak, the chicken, and the shrimp rolled up, deep fried, and then cut. And then like you got like a little soy or whatever dipping sauce for it.
Yeah.
It was pretty damn good.
I've never
Speaking of egg rolls, the Vault
can't-
in Mount Lookout, their Philly cheesesteak egg rolls, oof, they're pretty good.
I did like 2 weekends ago, Royer. I did Jamaican jerk egg rolls.
Wow.
With
a little
short
homage to Island Fridays.
It was with I made short ribs with Jamaican jerk sauce, put them in the crock pot, shredded them, some peppers, and did and that's kind of started the egg roll kick that I've been on, Aaron.
I can't wrap like a burrito on my own. Like I have to have somebody help me out wrapping it. So I don't know how this would go for me, if I'm being completely honest.
But I had a lasagna egg roll that actually was surprisingly good. We were worried about that one. A brisket and mac and cheese egg roll. A hibachi egg roll.
Amazing.
Yeah, the brisket and mac and cheese one was the best one.
That sounds really good.
And then the hibachi one, and then there was like a soul food one with like collard greens and mac and cheese and chicken, and it was really good. They said it was like an award-winning, like it's won like national competitions, the egg roll truck.
Nice.
It was delicious. But yeah, hibachi egg roll.
We'll see. Maybe I'll just hop on Meat Church and find something on there that I haven't made before. And
easiest thing to do.
It is that.
All right. Well,
that's the mailbag. Get us out of here, Chad.
We didn't know what we were going to get out of tonight, but I think it turned into a pretty damn good show. And we will be anxiously awaiting the return of Brent Young next week to the BBP. For Ryan Royer, for Aaron Smith, I'm Chad Brendel.
Okay. I'm still on vacation.
This is the Bearcat Bounce podcast, brought to you by Danco Transmission, right here on BearcatJournal.com.
See